Top 15 Ugly Stones That Became Million-Dollar Treasures. Welcome back to Tops, the journey where we uncover the hidden stories of gemstones and reveal the treasures the world almost overlooked. Throughout history, humans have sought beauty in the earth: diamonds, rubies, emeralds, gems whose brilliance is immediately apparent upon first glance. But what about the stones no one wanted? The gray ores, the fractured rubble, and the cloudy crystals were dismissed as worthless. Many of these so-called ugly stones were tossed aside by miners and forgotten by merchants, until one by one they revealed secrets so extraordinary that they rose to the status of million-dollar treasures. And here lies the warning. The gem that takes the #1 spot in this list was once considered so dull and so unremarkable that even experts overlooked it. Yet today, it shines with a neon fire so rare that collectors pay more per carat than for diamonds. Missing this story would mean missing the lesson of a lifetime. Because if you don't recognize value when it hides in plain sight, you risk making the wrong investment, not just in gems, but in everything. If this is your first time joining us at Tops, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the discoveries waiting in future episodes of Gemstone Kingdom. Stay with us, because over the next 15 stones you'll see dull ore that hid blood, broken rubble that turned into palaces, mold green rocks that crowned kings, and finally the stone once dismissed as worthless that became the brightest gem of our century. This is the countdown of the top 15 ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures. Ranked 15th, Hematite, the ugly iron ore that became the stone of blood. At number 15 on our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we begin with a rock most miners once threw aside. To the eye, hematite looks like nothing more than iron slag. Dull gray, metallic, and heavy, with the lifeless sheen of rust. It has no sparkle, no fire, nothing that would suggest a future in a jewel box. And yet this ordinary ore conceals a transformation so profound that ancient civilizations attributed to it the power of blood itself. Hematite is iron oxide, the mineral that marks the transition of humanity into the Iron Age. Found in sedimentary beds, hydrothermal veins, and metamorphic zones, its massive, blocky forms rarely invite admiration. Crystals are rare, and most specimens appear as rough lumps or massive slab-like formations. But when scraped across stone or ground to powder, hematite reveals its secret: a deep crimson streak. This hidden color made it more than an ore. To the ancients, it was the essence of life and death. In Egypt, powdered hematite was used as a red pigment for sarcophagi and ritual objects. Priests saw in its crimson dust the promise of resurrection, a bridge between mortal blood and divine rebirth. Roman soldiers carved amulets from hematite, convinced the stone could stop bleeding and protect them in war. Across Mesopotamia, carved seals bore their dark shine, pressed into clay as signatures of power. Even in medieval Europe, apothecaries prescribed hematite powders to bind the blood, believing they could aid in wound healing. From a shapeless lump of ore, hematite modern gem markets still treat hematite as a minor player. Cabochons and beads cut from polished hematite are affordable, sold more for their spiritual appeal than for their luxury value. But history reshapes the value. A scarab seal of hematite from an Egyptian tomb, or a Roman intaglio carved for a legionnaire, can command tens of thousands at Christie's or Bonham's. Collectors do not seek its sparkle. They seek the archive of memory it carries. Even unusual natural forms, rose-shaped iron roses from the Alps, or mirror-bright crystals from Brazil, are prized in museums and private collections. What once sat in a miner's waste heap. When we consider how to close its story, two frames fall away. Silence cannot serve hematite, because its record is loud with drums of war and chants of priests. Inversion is misleading too, for hematite did not transform from beauty to ugliness or back again. It was always rough and only later redeemed by meaning. The most fitting directive is archive. Hematite does not live in glittering showcases, but in museum cases, archaeological reports, and auction catalogs. It is an ore turned into a record, a stone that preserves humanity's fascination with thus. Hematite earns its place in this countdown. If blood and war are carved into a stone, should we celebrate it or fear it? Hematite revealed blood hidden within gray iron. But what if beauty hid not in blood, but in brokenness? At number 14, Brecciated Jasper, rubble reborn as royal mosaic. Ranked 14th, Brecciated Jasper, the broken rock that became a palace treasure. At number 14 on our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we turn to a stone that looks as if it should have stayed in the rubble heap. Brecciated jasper is not graceful in its natural state. Its surface is jagged, mottled, and fractured, resembling broken pottery that has been glued back together. For centuries, quarrymen saw nothing but a worthless rock scarred with cracks. But when polished, its very flaws revealed something extraordinary. Mosaics of red, brown, and cream that once decorated Renaissance palaces and still command admiration today. Geologically, brecciated jasper is a variety of microcrystalline quartz formed when fragments of older stones were cemented together by silica. The name itself, brecciated, comes from the Italian word for broken. It is, quite literally, a stone of fragments, a patchwork of rubble preserved in mineral form. Its fractured veins often appear messy and chaotic, with angular pieces bound by hematite-rich seams. In the rough, it seems almost accidental, an untidy scar across the Earth's surface. Yet under the wheel of the polisher, those chaotic breaks become patterns that resemble stained glass, each fracture line reframing the stone's natural colors into abstract art. It was during the Renaissance that brecciated jasper found its unlikely elevation. Italian artisans, fascinated by its patchwork designs, cut and polished slabs for tabletops, floors, and wall inlays. In Florence and Rome, it became a material for pietra dura, the art of stone mosaics, where fragments were fitted together like a painter's brushstrokes. What was once discarded as rubble became a medium of luxury, lining palaces and cathedrals. Collectors marveled at how nature itself had already made the mosaic. No human hand could improve upon the fractured beauty hidden in the stone. Culturally, brecciated jasper was believed to possess strength due to its broken nature. In medieval Europe, talismans carved from it were thought to piece together scattered thoughts and broken fortunes. In some traditions, it was given to soldiers and travelers as a stone of stability, its fractures seen as proof that even broken things could endure. Where hematite connected humanity to blood, brecciated jasper connected them to resilience, a reminder that brokenness can be bound into strength. On the modern market, brecciated jasper is not priced like emeralds or sapphires. Ordinary pieces sell as cabochons, beads, or decorative slabs. However, exceptional historical works, such as pietra dura inlays, carved cameos, or large polished panels, have fetched tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Their value lies less in the gem trade and more in the realm of art history. When a brecciated jasper panel is set into a Renaissance table or a Russian imperial box, the price climbs far beyond its geological worth. In such contexts, the stone is no longer rubble. It is a fragment of history polished into permanence. When considering how the story should end, some options prove unsuccessful. The archive does not suit it, for brecciated jasper is not locked away in records but displayed in objects. Inversion is weaker too, since its transformation was not a reversal from beauty to ugliness, but a reinterpretation of ugliness into design. The correct frame is object focus. For brecciated jasper, the meaning is found not in the mine nor in the fragment, but in the object it becomes: a mosaic, a panel, a carved ornament. It is a stone that only finds its voice once it has been shaped, polished, and placed within human artistry. That is why brecciated jasper belongs in this countdown, an ugly fractured rock turned into a million-dollar surface, an accidental mosaic that adorned palaces. Its story reminds us that beauty can emerge not from perfection, but from fragments bound together. Is this broken rubble true beauty, or just human imagination imposed upon rock? From broken fragments that form palaces, we move to a stone that refuses to stay one color. Number 13, Andalusite, a shifting gem of three faces in one. Ranked 13th, Andalusite, the muddy stone that reveals three colors at once. At number 13 on our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we meet a gem that rarely makes a first impression. In the rough, Andalusite is uninspiring, an earthy crystal colored in dull shades of brown, olive, and muddy green. For centuries it was overlooked, lumped in with ordinary minerals. Yet within this plain exterior lies a trick of light that puzzled scientists and fascinated collectors. A stone that shows not one, not two, but three colors at once. Andalusite takes its name from Andalusia in Spain, where it was first described in the 18th century. Geologically, it is an aluminum silicate that forms in metamorphic rocks when high pressure and temperature alter clay-rich sediments. Its crystals are typically prismatic, blocky, and unremarkable to the casual observer. What sets Andalusite apart is its unusual optical property, strong trichroism. When viewed from different angles, it reveals three distinct colors: green, red, and yellow. A gem that looks muddy brown in one direction suddenly flashes with shifting tones as it turns in the hand. For much of history, this phenomenon was a curiosity rather than a treasure. Jewelers hesitated to use Andalusite because its earthy base tones seemed unattractive compared to the vivid saturation of sapphire or emerald. But in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, lapidaries began cutting Andalusite to maximize its optical play. Under precise faceting, the trichroic effect created gems that seemed to change personality with every glance. Collectors came to appreciate its deceptive nature, referring to it as a chameleon stone. Culturally, Andalusite was linked with balance and perception. In metaphysical traditions, it symbolized the ability to see truth from multiple perspectives. In South America, where significant deposits are found, local lore describes it as a stone that could reveal hidden intentions, an ugly exterior that, under the right light, betrays what lies beneath. This dual identity made Andalusite more than a mineral curiosity. It became a metaphor for perception itself. In today's gemstone trade, Andalusite remains a rare yet highly regarded gem. High-quality faceted stones with vivid trichroism can sell for several $1,000s per carat. While not as astronomically priced as Paraíba Tourmaline or Imperial Jadeite, fine Andalusite finds buyers at Christie's and Sotheby's when presented as part of antique jewelry or unique collections. Its value lies in its uniqueness, a gem that reminds us that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. When choosing how to close this story, two approaches fall away. Silence does not fit, for Andalusite is not about stillness, it is about constant change. The archive is also weaker, since Andalusite's story is not preserved in museums, but lives in the play of light. The proper ending is inversion. Andalusite inverts expectation, a muddy stone that reveals fire within, a dull exterior that hides shifting brilliance. It is the contradiction between what is seen first and what is revealed later that makes this gem a treasure. And so Andalusite takes its place at number 13. At first sight, it may seem unappealing, yet captivating when appropriately cut, proving that perception can transform rubble into treasure. A stone dismissed by miners became a jewel of collectors, simply because light exposed what eyes alone could not. Three colors in one stone, miracle of nature or overhyped trick of light. If Andalusite taught us that beauty depends on angle, the following gem proves that beauty can be blinding, greasy, ugly, overlooked, until it burns brighter than a diamond. Number 12, Sphalerite. Ranked 12th, Sphalerite, the greasy ore that burns brighter than diamond. At number 12 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we find a stone miners never wanted to keep. To them, Sphalerite was a greasy ore, an unwanted companion in zinc mines, slippery to the touch, dull in appearance, and brittle under pressure. For centuries it was cast aside as industrial waste, and yet when cut with precision, this overlooked mineral bursts with fire greater than diamond itself. How could something so undesirable hide such brilliance? Sphalerite, chemically zinc sulfide, forms in hydrothermal veins alongside galena and other sulfide ores. Most specimens are opaque, brown, or resinous, and miners valued only the zinc they contained. Its greasy luster gave it an unflattering reputation. Sphaleros in Greek even means treacherous or deceptive. For miners, it was nothing but a troublesome ore that dulled their tools and crumbled too easily to be of use. In the rough, it never hinted at the spectacle within. But under the lapidary's hand, sphalerite reveals a hidden truth. Transparent crystals, when faceted, unleash a dispersion nearly 3 times that of diamonds. Light splits into flashes of red, orange, and yellow, creating a fiery brilliance unmatched by almost any other gem. Yet its very beauty is fleeting. With a hardness of only 3.5 to 4 on the Mohs scale and perfect cleavage, sphalerite is far too fragile for daily wear. Jewelers may cut it into breathtaking gems, but they rarely risk setting them into rings. Most sphalerites live in display cases, admired but untouched. Historically, sphalerite was little more than a curiosity. Collectors in the 19th century experimented with faceting it, astonished at its fire, but few dared to trade it as a serious gem. In Europe, particularly in the Cantabrian mountains of Spain, crystals were cut as novelties. Today, fine specimens from Spain, Mexico, and Pakistan appear in museums and high-end collections. For dealers and collectors, the paradox is irresistible. A stone that cannot survive ordinary use, yet dazzles brighter than almost anything else. On the market, sphalerite occupies a strange position. Large, flawless gems can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes reaching 6 figures at specialized auctions. But its fragility keeps it from entering the mainstream jewelry trade. Instead, sphalerite thrives as a collector's prize, often bought not for adornment, but for rarity and spectacle. A stone once dismissed as greasy waste now commands reverence precisely because of what it cannot do. It shines only in absence, never in permanence. And that absence defines its story. The archive is not right, for sphalerite does not live in records, but in brief flashes of fire. Inversion does not capture it either, because its transformation is not about opposites, but about fragility within brilliance. The actual ending is absence. Sphalerite dazzles most when it is not worn, unused, and untouched. Its million-dollar fire exists only in the absence of utility, in the knowledge that something so fragile can still burn brighter than diamond. Thus, sphalerite earns its place in this countdown, a gem that miners once discarded, that jewelers hesitate to set, yet collectors chase for its impossible brilliance. Ugly in ore, fragile in cut, yet priceless in the moment of fire. Would you pay millions for a gem too fragile ever to wear? Yes or no? Fire that cannot be worn gives way to rust that built empires. From fragile brilliance to silent strength. Number 11. Malachite. Ranked 11th. Malachite. The copper rust that became a palace treasure. At number 11 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we turn to a mineral that miners once brushed off as little more than the scars of copper. Malachite, with its swirling bands of green, was long considered a worthless byproduct, soft, fragile, easily scratched, and too unstable for serious use. To the early prospector, it looked like nothing more than green rust clinging to veins of copper ore. However, over the centuries, this so-called corrosion evolved into one of the most recognizable and luxurious stones in history, adorning palaces, icons, and masterpieces worth millions of dollars. Geologically, malachite forms when copper deposits weather and oxidize, creating botryoidal masses, rounded lumps that coat underground cavities. The raw stone often appears as nodules or stalactite-like growths, with rough, chalky exteriors that hide the intricate patterns within. Its chemical fragility made it unsuitable for gemstones. At a Mohs hardness of 3.5 to 4, malachite scratches easily, breaks along its fibrous structure, and loses polish quickly. To miners, this fragility was proof of its uselessness. To artists and rulers, however, the very weakness of malachite became its strength, because it could be carved, polished, and shaped into vast ornaments. From the ancient world onward, malachite carried deep symbolic weight. Egyptians crushed it for green pigments used in cosmetics and tomb paintings. In Greece and Rome, it was ground into protective powders believed to ward off evil. But it was in Russia, during the reign of the Tsars, that malachite reached its most opulent moment. Massive deposits in the Ural Mountains supplied blocks large enough to sheath entire rooms. In St. Petersburg, the Malachite room of the Winter Palace glows with columns, fireplaces, and walls entirely clad in this once dismissed mineral. Fabergé, the famed jeweler, used malachite in boxes, eggs, and imperial gifts, transforming copper rust into treasures fit for royalty. Culturally, malachite was revered as a guardian stone. Its shifting green bands symbolize life, fertility, and transformation. In folklore, it was thought to absorb danger, cracking before its wearer could come to harm. Even today, in crystal healing circles, malachite is described as a stone of protection and change. What was once mocked as unstable copper ore became a cultural touchstone, its instability recast as evidence of living power. In the modern market, malachite continues to blur the line between mineral and masterpiece. While small cabochons and beads are inexpensive, large museum-quality carvings, panels, or antique Fabergé pieces command staggering sums. Exceptional works, such as vases, clocks, or architectural slabs, have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction, with some pushing into the million-dollar range when linked to historic provenance. Once dismissed as green corrosion, malachite today is recognized as both a geological wonder and a symbol of imperial luxury. How should its story close? The archive does not suit it, for malachite lives not in records but in walls and halls. Inversion does not quite fit either, because malachite was not simply ugly turned beautiful. It was corrosion reimagined as a form of magnificence. The right frame is silence. Malachite overwhelms not with words but with its presence. Its concentric rings and sweeping green patterns do not need explanation. They arrest the eye, command the room, and silence those who behold them. Thus, malachite takes its place at number 11. A mineral born as copper's blemish, transformed into a language of empires. Its story is not of perfection, but of persistence, proof that even what looks like corrosion can be elevated into art. When weakness turns into luxury, is that proof of value or proof of illusion? Malachite rose in silent columns, but our next treasure holds voices of the past, creatures locked in golden resin. Number 10, amber with inclusions. Ranked 10th, amber with inclusions, the flawed gem that preserved life for millions of years. At number 10 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we arrive at a material that is not a stone at all, but the hardened resin of ancient forests. For centuries, amber with inclusions was considered flawed, clouded with bubbles, dirt, or worse, insects entombed within. Traders preferred the clear golden pieces, dismissing those that held small creatures as ugly accidents of nature. Yet those very flaws have become amber's greatest treasures. Inclusions turned amber into the only gemstone capable of preserving life from a world that vanished millions of years ago. Amber forms when resin from prehistoric trees drips, hardens, and fossilizes under layers of sediment. Most amber is tens of millions of years old, with some specimens even older, carrying with them the history of vanished ecosystems. The most transparent amber was always valued for jewelry, particularly along the Baltic coast. But pieces containing inclusions, flies, spiders, leaves, even lizards, were once viewed as imperfections. To early jewelers, they ruined transparency. To naturalists, they became priceless records of the past. Cultures worldwide revered amber, but the inclusions carried special meaning. In ancient China, insects trapped in amber were seen as souls, sparks of life preserved in a golden light. In medieval Europe, collectors believed such amber contained protective spirits. By the 19th century, with the rise of modern science, amber inclusions had become more than curiosities. They had become data. Fossilized insects in amber have helped Charles Darwin and later paleontologists reconstruct the evolution of life, providing insight into extinct forests. What was once rejected as flawed jewelry became a primary archive of natural history. Culturally, amber has long been associated with the sun, warmth, and protection. Inclusions transformed it into something more, an eternal memory. For collectors today, owning amber with a perfectly preserved insect is not about wearing a gem, but about holding a piece of time itself. A fly caught in amber is a 40-million-year-old snapshot, a moment frozen forever. On the market, amber with inclusions can command extraordinary prices. Common pieces sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars, but rare specimens, large insects, flowers, or vertebrates, have fetched six-figure sums. A piece of Dominican amber containing a lizard once sold for over $100,000. In 2016, a piece of Burmese amber containing a feathered dinosaur tail stunned the world and raised its value into museum territory. These are not ornaments. They are treasures of science and culture, as valuable to collectors as they are to paleontologists. As we close Amber's story, some endings do not fit. Silence does not work, for amber speaks loudly through the voices of extinct species. Inversion is also weak. Since amber did not shift from ugly to beautiful, it moved from flawed to priceless. The most fitting directive is archive. Amber with inclusions is, quite literally, nature's archive. Each piece is a library of vanished forests, cataloging insects, plants, and creatures that would otherwise be lost to time. Its million-dollar value is not in shine, but in memory, the eternal preservation of life. Thus, amber with inclusions earns its place at number 10. Ugly to early jewelers, yet now recognized as one of the most valuable natural records on Earth. A gem of imperfection that became a window into prehistory. Would you wear a piece of jewelry that has a dead creature trapped inside? From amber's golden tombs of insects, we descend underground, into caves where dull stalactites split to reveal crimson hearts. Number 9. Rhodochrosite. Ranked 9th, Rhodochrosite, the cave stone that revealed a crimson heart. At number 9 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we turn to a mineral that seems to bleed when revealed. Today, slices of Rhodochrosite stalactites, banded with crimson and pink, sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. Museums guard them as masterpieces of natural art. Yet for centuries the stone was nothing but a cave oddity. Lumpy brownish growths clinging to the ceilings of mines, dismissed as worthless mineral deposits. How did a cave stain become one of the world's most prized ornamental treasures? Rhodochrosite is manganese carbonate, forming in hydrothermal veins and often appearing in caves as stalactitic growths. To miners in Argentina and Peru, the material looked unremarkable, chalky, rough, and brittle, frequently mistaken for rusted limestone. It was soft, fragile, and unsuitable for mining profit. But when collectors began slicing through the stalactites, the hidden beauty emerged, concentric rings of vivid red, rose, and white that resemble the cross-section of a heart. A lump of ugly cavestone, once broken, revealed bands that rivaled the artistry of a painter. The Inca are believed to have revered Rhodochrosite, referring to it as the Inca rose. Legends claimed it was the crystallized blood of their rulers, transformed into stone within the earth. Although the tale is poetic, archaeological finds suggest that they did indeed carve and treasure the mineral. In modern times, Argentina became the epicenter of Rhodochrosite's rediscovery. The Capelitas mine in Catamarca province revealed enormous stalactites, some weighing tons, which when sliced became slabs of crimson beauty. No longer dismissed, these cave formations became sought-after collectors' pieces, transformed from mining waste into museum displays. Culturally, Rhodochrosite was reborn as a stone of passion and healing. Its crimson bands symbolized love and vitality. In the 20th century, metaphysical traditions adopted it as a gem of the heart, promoting emotional balance. But beyond folklore, its visual impact is undeniable. When polished into spheres, cabochons, or slabs, the stone resembles abstract art, circles of red and pink frozen into carbonate. What once stained the walls of mines now gleams under glass in galleries. On the market, Rhodochrosite has reached spectacular prices. Large museum-quality stalactite slices have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The Alma King specimen from Colorado, a blocky crystal rather than a stalactite, is considered the finest in the world and valued in the millions. Even smaller stalactite cross-sections from Argentina are highly collectible, commanding tens of thousands of dollars when patterns are strong and colors are vibrant. In jewelry, Rhodochrosite remains a fragile yet precious stone, an ornamental gem treasured for its rarity and beauty. Its story is best told in reverse chronology. Begin today with auction houses showcasing slabs that resemble works of modern art. Step back to the 20th century when Argentina exported crates of sliced stalactites to Europe and America. Step further back to miners who first broke open the rough, shocked to see red rings within. And finally to the cave ceilings where it all began. Ugly brown lumps that no one thought to keep. The transformation is clear. What was once discarded rock is now crimson treasure, revered for the very patterns that could only be seen once the stone was broken. That is why the proper directive for Rhodochrosite is reverse chronology. Its value is best understood by walking backward, from prized museum specimen to forgotten cave growth. Its beauty was always there, but hidden in time and stone. So Rhodochrosite takes its place at number 9, ugly in origin, magnificent in revelation. Break open worthless rock, find a crimson heart. Would you take the risk? The heart of stone burns red, but the next gem burns with every color at once. Fragile, fleeting, but brighter than a diamond. Number 8, Sphene, ranked 8th. Sphene, the fragile crystal that burns brighter than diamond. At number 8 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we meet a mineral that rarely drew attention from miners or jewelers. Sphene, also known as titanite, was long dismissed as dull, brittle, and unworthy of the gem trade. In its raw form, it appears greenish-brown, cloudy, and often fractured. Too soft for tools, too fragile for jewelry, it seemed destined to remain a geological footnote. But once faceted, Sphene explodes with fire dispersion so strong it casts rainbows that rival and even surpass the brilliance of a diamond. Geologically, Sphene is a calcium-titanium silicate found in metamorphic rocks and granite pegmatites worldwide. It often forms wedge-shaped crystals, which gave it the name titanite due to their resemblance to ancient weapons. Yet for centuries, Sphene was collected only as a mineral specimen. With a Mohs hardness of 5 to 5.5 and perfect cleavage, it fractured too easily to be cut or worn. To most, it was simply an ugly collector's stone, too fragile to matter. But in the hands of skilled lapidaries, Sphene revealed a secret. Its dispersion, the ability to split light into spectral colors, measures nearly twice that of diamond. Under the proper cut, light bursts into a kaleidoscope of green, yellow, orange, and red. Collectors describe Sphene gems as miniature fireworks, alive with spectral flashes that shift at every angle. In museums, well-cut Sphene is displayed under spotlights, not for its size but for the sheer intensity of its fire. Historically, Sphene never became a cultural cornerstone like jade or sapphire. Its story belongs not to ancient rituals, but to modern collectors and scientists. In the 19th century, mineralogists studied it for its high titanium content, which was linked to the rise of new industrial metals. Only in the 20th century did jewelers begin to experiment with cutting Sphene, producing rare gems that astonished with their brilliance. Unlike diamonds, sapphires, or rubies, Sphene's fame came not from crowns or legends, but from laboratories and collectors' cabinets. On the market, Sphene remains a rare and specialized gemstone. High-quality, faceted gems over 5 carats can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, and exceptional stones with perfect clarity and dispersion approach 6 figures. Yet Sphene's fragility keeps it from being used in mainstream jewelry. No engagement rings, no royal regalia. It is a stone admired but rarely worn. Its value lies in rarity and spectacle. A gem so brilliant it almost seems unreal, yet too delicate to fulfill the demands of fashion. How does its story close? The archive does not suit Sphene, for it is not about history, but about fleeting brilliance. Inversion is weak because Sphene was not transformed from ugly to beautiful in time. It is attractive only in the cut. The proper directive is cut/no ending. Sphene's story begins and ends with the lapidary's wheel. Uncut, it is ordinary. Cut, it burns brighter than a diamond. But the tale halts there, because it cannot survive daily wear. It is brilliance without continuation, its ending cut short. Thus, Sphene claims the 8th spot in our countdown, an ugly wedge of brittle crystal, reborn as a prism of fire, a gem that dazzles more than a diamond, yet lives in the glass cases of collectors rather than on the hands of kings. A gem brighter than a diamond, but doomed to break, treasure or tragedy. Halfway through our list, we reset. From fragile fire, we turn to moldy stone, dismissed as worthless until kings built palaces from its green glow. Number 7, Chrysoprase. Ranked 7th, Chrysoprase, the moldy rock that became the Emerald of Kings. At number 7 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we encounter a stone that once carried the stigma of decay. To early miners, Chrysoprase looked like little more than moldy rock, greenish, cloudy, and lacking the transparency of emerald. Found in riverbeds and weathered outcrops, it was soft, often riddled with fractures, and quickly dismissed as inferior. Yet in time, this moldy stone would rise to power, treasured by emperors, carved into royal seals, and even adorning the palaces of Prussia. Chrysoprase is a variety of chalcedony colored by nickel impurities. Unlike emerald, it does not sparkle with sharp crystal faces. Instead, it forms as cryptocrystalline masses, opaque to translucent, with a waxy surface. In rough form, it can resemble algae-stained quartz, hardly the image of a precious gem. But when cut and polished, Chrysoprase glows with a soft apple-green translucence that seems to hold light within. Its beauty lies not in brilliance, but in serenity, a quiet green fire that seduced rulers through the ages. In antiquity, Chrysoprase was used in amulets and cameos across the Mediterranean, but its most famous patron was Frederick the Great of Prussia in the 18th century. Obsessed with its luminous green, he ordered tons of chrysoprase mined from Silesia and used it to decorate the halls of his palace at Potsdam. Columns, vases, and entire inlays were carved from the stone once mocked as worthless. Under candlelight, the polished surfaces glowed with a warm green aura, creating an atmosphere of regal mystique. The Emerald of Kings, as it came to be called, was no longer moldy rock, but a symbol of imperial taste. Culturally, chrysoprase was believed to carry the power of vision and truth. Medieval lore claimed it could sharpen sight and reveal deception. Sailors wore it for protection, and mystics prized it as a stone of clarity. Its soft translucence, once mistaken for weakness, became the very reason it was revered. Even today in metaphysical traditions, chrysoprase is regarded as a stone of renewal and emotional healing, proof that what is dismissed as fragile can be transformed into something powerful. On the modern market, chrysoprase still carries weight. Ordinary beads and cabochons are affordable, but fine translucent materials, such as ancient Silesian stock or Australian deposits, command high prices. Large carved objects from the Prussian palaces or Russian workshops are worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, when they appear at auction. Christie's and Sotheby's have sold chrysoprase inlays and cameos at sums far exceeding their geological worth, because their value is tied to history and artistry, not just the mineral itself. For chrysoprase, archive is not the proper ending, for it does not live in records but in objects. Silence is not fitting either, because the stone speaks loudly through the halls it decorates. The correct directive is object focus. Chrysoprase matters not simply as a mineral, but as the objects it became: columns in a palace, cameos for royalty, carved seals of emperors. Its meaning is inseparable from the art it adorned. Thus, chrysoprase earns its place at number 7. Ugly as mold, radiant as emerald, a stone whose power was realized only when shaped by human hands. If kings built palaces from what looked like mold, do you see genius or madness? Chrysoprase crowned kings, but the next gem crowned kings in secret, worn in royal jewels for centuries under the wrong name. Number 6, Spinel. Ranked 6th, Spinel, the fake ruby that became a million-dollar treasure. At number 6 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we find a gemstone that spent centuries living under a false identity. Spinel was once considered little more than a ruby imposter, an inferior double that fooled kings, emperors, and jewelers alike. Its crystals gleamed in shades of red, pink, and violet. But because they so closely resembled rubies, they were dismissed as fake. For generations, collectors have sought the ruby's prestige, ignoring Spinel's quiet brilliance. Only in recent decades has this imposter stepped out of ruby's shadow, claiming recognition and value of its own, and commanding millions at auction. Geologically, Spinel is a magnesium aluminum oxide that crystallizes in the cubic system, unlike ruby, which belongs to the corundum group. Spinel forms in octahedral shapes, often sharp and gemmy. It appears in marble-hosted deposits and alluvial gravels, alongside sapphires and rubies. In the rough, miners rarely distinguish between them because their colors overlap so closely. For centuries, all red gemstones of royal quality were referred to as rubies. Spinel's own name and identity were absent from history. This absence shaped some of the world's greatest treasures. The 170-carat Black Prince's ruby, set in the British imperial state crown, is not a ruby at all, but a Spinel. Similarly, the 361-carat Timor ruby was presented to Queen Victoria by the East India Company. Both of these rubies carried centuries of imperial symbolism, yet neither was what it seemed to be. Spinel's story is one of erasure. It sat on royal thrones, yet its name was never spoken. Culturally, Spinel's role as a hidden twin to ruby shaped how it was perceived. For kings, the identity did not matter. What mattered was the red, the symbol of blood, power, and sovereignty. For gemology, however, the truth came late. Only in the late 18th century, with the rise of crystallography and chemistry, did scientists recognize Spinel as a distinct mineral. What had been ignored for centuries suddenly became a subject of fascination. Its absence from history was now reinterpreted as a mystery. On the modern market, Spinel has risen dramatically. Once considered cheap and even mocked, fine Spinel now commands serious prices. Vivid red Burmese Spinel, cobalt blue Spinel from Sri Lanka, and neon pink Spinel from Tanzania are among the most desirable gems today. Sotheby's and Christie's have auctioned Spinels for over $1 million. The stigma of fake ruby has been erased. Collectors now prize Spinel for precisely what it was denied: authenticity. But its story must end where it began, in absence. The archive does not suit, for Spinel's value was not recorded, but omitted. Inversion does not fit, for it was never ugly turned beautiful. It was lovely, yet ignored. The proper ending is absence. Spinel was absent from its own history, its name missing from royal records, its identity swallowed by ruby. And that absence, once its greatest curse, has now become its most incredible allure. To own Spinel today is to hold the ghost of history, the stone that ruled empires in silence. Thus, Spinel takes its place at number 6. Once dismissed as a fraud, it is now a treasure in its own right. A gemstone defined by absence, absent from recognition, absent from names, yet always present on crowns. For centuries, it was a fake ruby. Today, it's $1 million gem. Do you trust it? If Spinel lived in ruby's shadow, the following gem stares from the shadows itself, an unblinking iron stone. Number 5, Chrysoberyl cat's eye. Ranked 5th, Chrysoberyl cat's eye, the cloudy stone that stared back. At number 5 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we come to a gemstone that at first looks cloudy, even unimpressive. In its raw form, Chrysoberyl is yellowish or greenish, opaque, with a waxy surface that few would describe as beautiful. Jewelers long ignored it, favoring the fire of diamond or the saturation of emerald. But when cut into a cabochon and placed beneath a single light, something extraordinary appears. A razor-sharp band of silver that slides across its surface like the slit pupil of a predator. This is the cat's eye effect, and it transformed a forgotten yellow stone into one of the world's most mysterious treasures. Geologically, Chrysoberyl is beryllium aluminum oxide, a cousin of emerald and alexandrite. The cat's eye variety occurs when the stone is packed with tiny parallel inclusions of rutile. These needle-like structures scatter light in a single line, a phenomenon known as chatoyancy. To the miner, rough Chrysoberyl looks dull and ordinary. But under the lapidary's hand, cut into a dome, it reveals a piercing gaze that seems alive. Few gems in history hold such a transformation, from ugly ore to a stone that stares back. Culturally, cat's eye Chrysoberyl carried immense power. In South Asia, it was revered as a guardian gem. Hindu tradition associated it with Ketu, the shadow planet of karma and fate. Believers wore it for protection from misfortune, convinced it could ward off the evil eye by embodying an eye of its own. In Sri Lanka, rulers prized it as a talisman of vigilance and wealth. Unlike diamond or ruby, the value of cat's eye was never in sparkle, but in the unsettling watchfulness of its line of light. In the modern world, Chrysoberyl cat's eyes remain rare and highly sought after for their collectability. The finest stones come from Sri Lanka, Brazil, and India. Gems with sharp, centered eyes, strong translucence, and the milk and honey effect, where the stone appears half golden, half shadowed, command immense sums. In 2012, a 59.5 carat cat's eye from Sri Lanka sold for over $500,000. While exceptional stones have crossed the $1 million threshold at auction, what was once dismissed as a cloudy, yellow cabochon is now a gemstone sought after by kings, collectors, and investors. For its story, archive is not fitting, for cat's eye is not about preservation, but vigilance. Inversion is weaker as well, since its value is not the opposite of its ugliness, but the revelation of its hidden gaze. The ending that fits best is silence. The power of a cat's eye is not in words but in presence, the silent, unblinking line of light that follows the viewer. Its value lies in the stillness it commands, the hush that falls when its gaze locks onto yours. Thus, Chrysoberyl cat's eye earns its place at number 5. Ugly in the rough, extraordinary in the light, it is the stone that watches. If a stone stares back at you, would you dare to wear it? The eye watches in silence, but the successive gem bursts alive only in fire. Dull brown turned to violet flame. Number 4, Tanzanite. Ranked 4th, Tanzanite, the dull brown stone transformed into violet fire. At number 4 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we meet a gem that lay hidden in plain sight until fire revealed its secret. In its natural state, rough Tanzanite is brown, muddy, and unremarkable. Miners in northern Tanzania once saw it as worthless. Yet when exposed to heat, this dull crystal transforms into a deep violet blue flame. From obscurity, it rose in a single generation to become one of the most coveted gemstones of the modern world. Geologically, Tanzanite is a variety of zoisite colored by traces of vanadium. It occurs only in a narrow strip of land near Mount Kilimanjaro, making it a true one-location gem. Discovered in 1967, its rough crystals often appeared brownish or greenish, unattractive to jewelers. But when local Maasai herders and prospectors experimented with heat, they found that fire altered the stone's chemistry, revealing intense violet blue hues unlike anything else on Earth. A gem that once looked like dusty gravel became, under flame, a rival to sapphire. Tiffany and Company recognized its potential and in 1968 gave it the name Tanzanite, linking it forever to its place of origin. With a single marketing campaign, the brown rock became a global sensation. In little more than 50 years, it has gone from unknown to iconic, adorning high-end jewelry and commanding prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Culturally, Tanzanite quickly became a symbol of rarity and new beginnings. In Maasai tradition, blue stones were considered sacred and were gifted to women after childbirth as blessings for a long and fulfilling life. Western markets embraced it as a December birthstone, but more than that, as a 20th century discovery that rivaled the ancient prestige of sapphire and emerald. It became a gemstone of modernity, a treasure born of chance and transformed by flame. On the market, Tanzanite has seen dramatic highs. Exceptional stones over 50 carats with vivid violet blue have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with record pieces reaching into the $1 million range. The 118.9 carat Queen of Kilimanjaro, set in a tiara, is among the largest cut Tanzanites in the world. But its supply is finite. The Tanzanian government has declared that the mines may be exhausted within decades, adding urgency to its value. When considering its ending, archive does not fit. Tanzanite is too recent, its story still being written. Silence is not right either, for Tanzanite burns with drama. The proper directive is inversion. Tanzanite's entire story is reversal, muddy to magnificent, brown to violet, worthless to priceless. Its meaning lies in the transformation, the inversion of expectation that turned a forgotten stone into a global treasure. Thus, Tanzanite stands at number 4. Born dull, reborn radiant. It is proof that fire can change not just chemistry, but destiny. Born brown, reborn violet by fire. Is this nature's trick or nature's masterpiece? From a modern spark, we return to ancient rubble. Mountains of gray waste-hide rainbows worth millions. Number 3, Opal Potch. Ranked 3rd, Opal Potch, the gray stone that hid a rainbow worth millions. At number 3 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we find a stone that often looked like nothing at all. In the opal fields of Lightning Ridge, miners called it potch, dull, gray, and worthless. Loads of it were shoveled aside, dumped in heaps, forgotten. Yet inside some of these lifeless stones, hidden beneath layers of ash-colored silica, lay flashes of green, blue, and red, so brilliant that single pieces would one day sell for millions. Potch, the ugly brother of opal, turned out to be the hiding place of legends. The geological secret lies in the play of color. Ordinary opal, or potch, forms as hydrated silica deposited in cracks and cavities of sandstone. Unlike precious opal, its silica spheres are irregular, scattering light but never creating spectral colors. To the miner, potch was useless rock, the tailings of a hard life underground. But occasionally, within or alongside potch, conditions align perfectly. Silica spheres stacked in ordered arrays, splitting light into rainbows. A lump of gray could, when broken, reveal a gem like fire trapped in stone. For decades, Lightning Ridge miners in Australia dug through potch, searching for the rare veins of black opal concealed inside. Some of the world's most famous opals emerged from these heaps. The Aurora Australis, discovered in 1938, weighed 180 carats and revealed an entire galaxy of red, blue, and green. It has been valued at over $1 million. The Halley's Comet opal, at 1,982 carats, is the largest uncut black opal ever found, valued in the millions. Each began as an unassuming lump of potch, stone that many miners would have tossed away. Culturally, opal has always lived on the edge of beauty and suspicion. The Romans revered it as a stone of hope, while in medieval Europe it was feared as a bringer of misfortune. In Australia, however, opal became a symbol of the land itself, chaotic, dazzling, and unforgiving. Potch opal, the gray cast-off, was rarely celebrated, and yet, in a sense, potch tells the deeper story. Without mountains of worthless stone, the few veins of rainbow fire would never shine. In today's market, Lightning Ridge opals are among the most expensive gemstones on Earth. Black opals with vivid color bars can sell for tens of thousands per carat. Museum-level specimens, cut and polished, reach into the millions. Potch itself is still considered worthless, but the possibility it hides remains priceless. Dealers sometimes gamble on large boulders of opal-bearing rock, paying hundreds of thousands in hope of cutting a fortune. For miners, the difference between a gray rock and a rainbow treasure has always been the difference between poverty and wealth. How best to end this story? The archive does not suit it, for opal is not a record of life. Silence does not fit either, for opals scream with color. The right directive is reverse chronology. To understand opal, we begin with its million-dollar treasures, Aurora Australis, Halley's Comet, and then walk backward through the heaps of discarded potch to the miners who first mistook them for waste. Opal's story is not about gradual discovery, but about hindsight, brilliance revealed only after rejection. Thus, opal claims number 3, an ugly gray stone, worthless in heaps, yet hiding rainbows that became treasures of legend. Would you risk your life digging for one hidden rainbow in a gray stone? A rainbow hid in gray stone, but the next gem hid empires inside boulders. The Stone of Thrones, fought over by dynasties. Number 2, Jadeite ranks second. Jadeite, the worthless boulder that hid imperial green treasures. At number 2 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we encounter a gem that once looked like nothing at all. In Myanmar's jade fields, miners pulled from the ground enormous boulders, opaque, rough, scarred by fractures. To the untrained eye, they looked worthless, no different from river cobbles. Yet hidden within these boulders lay veins of green so intense, so luminous, that emperors would pay fortunes for a single piece. This was jadeite, the imperial green, a stone whose journey from rubble to throne reshaped empires. Geologically, jadeite is a pyroxene mineral, formed in high-pressure metamorphic zones where tectonic plates collide. Unlike its cousin nephrite, jadeite can achieve vivid, translucent green due to trace amounts of chromium. But in the rough, it is almost impossible to judge. Traders in Myanmar learned to gamble on ugly boulders, striking them with hammers, slicing windows into their skins, hoping to glimpse the glowing green heart within. Entire fortunes were won or lost on these gambles. A worthless-looking rock might conceal a treasure worth millions. Culturally, jadeite became more than a gemstone. It became a language of power. In China, where nephrite had been prized for millennia, jadeite from Myanmar entered the court of the Qing emperors in the 18th century. Its translucence and vivid green surpassed anything seen before. It became the stone of heaven, carved into imperial seals, court jewelry, and emblems of rank. For centuries, jadeite was inextricably linked to authority itself. No ruby or sapphire carried the same symbolic weight. To wear imperial green was to wear legitimacy. The value of jadeite reached extraordinary levels in the modern market. In 2014, a jadeite bead necklace known as the Hutton Medavani necklace sold at Sotheby's Hong Kong for $27.4 million. In 2017, another jadeite necklace, the doubly fortunate, fetched $27.6 million. Even single cabochons of fine imperial green jadeite can sell for millions, surpassing diamonds of the same size and value. And yet, each of these priceless treasures began as an ugly boulder that most would overlook. The irony is stark. The world's most prestigious gemstone hid inside stones mistaken for rubble. The story of jadeite, however, does not close with spectacle. Silence does not suit, for jadeite has never been silent. It has shaped dynasties and markets. Inversion is weak too, because jadeite is not about reversal, but revelation. The right directive is archive. Jadeite's journey is preserved in museum cases, auction records, and dynastic histories. It is not simply a gem of beauty, but a record of power, ambition, and belief, an archive carved in green. Thus, jadeite claims number 2 in our countdown. Ugly in boulder form, legendary in the treasures it revealed. A stone that transformed from worthless rock to a million-dollar archive of empire. Dynasties fell fighting for this green stone. Would you call that beauty or obsession? If jadeite crowned emperors, our final stone crowned a new era. Chalky, pale, overlooked, until light struck and neon fire was born. Number 1, Paraíba Tourmaline. In first place, Paraíba Tourmaline, the dull crystal that turned into neon fire. At number 1 in our countdown of ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures, we reach the most dramatic transformation of all. Tourmaline was once dismissed as a common gem, known for its abundance in pinks, greens, and blacks. Its crystals were often opaque, fractured, and unappealing. But in the 1980s, in the hills of Paraíba, Brazil, miners unearthed stones that looked ordinary. Washed out, chalky crystals with little promise. Yet when cut and polished, they revealed an electric blue-green glow so vivid and unnatural that dealers thought it impossible to replicate. The world had never seen a color like this in nature. From dull tourmaline, Paraíba was born, and the gem market would never be the same. Geologically, Paraíba Tourmaline owes its brilliance to the presence of copper. Trace elements of copper and manganese within its crystal structure create neon hues of turquoise, green, and violet blue. In rough form, these crystals often appear pale, chalky, or even opaque. But under the wheel of the cutter, light ignites the copper, creating a glow that seems to burn from within. Collectors describe it as the gem with its own light source, a stone that does not merely reflect light, but radiates it. The discovery was almost accidental. In the late 1980s, a persistent miner named Heitor Barbosa dug for years in Paraíba despite ridicule from others who saw nothing of value in the ground. Finally, his team uncovered veins of tourmaline unlike any that had been seen before. The first faceted stones reached the gem market in 1989 and caused an immediate frenzy. Dealers in Tucson, Basel, and Hong Kong were stunned. A gemstone once considered secondary had leapt to the pinnacle of desirability, all because of color. Culturally, Paraíba Tourmaline became the gem of the modern elite. Its electric blue evoked tropical seas and neon lights, symbols of luxury and rarity in the age of globalization. Celebrities wore it, designers competed for it, and collectors hoarded it. Unlike emerald or sapphire, whose histories stretch back millennia, Paraíba was new, an instant legend. Its narrative was not of emperors or saints, but of markets, auctions, and desire. In commerce, Paraíba Tourmaline redefined value. Prices skyrocketed within a decade, with fine stones reaching over $50,000 per carat. Today, the finest specimens, intense neon blue, flawless, and sizable, fetch 6 figures per carat, rivaling or surpassing diamonds. A 191-carat Paraíba Tourmaline, once set by Wallace Chan, has been valued in the tens of millions. Mines in Nigeria and Mozambique later produced similar copper-bearing tourmalines, but purists insist that only Brazilian stones deserve the name Paraíba. The legend of origin itself became part of the price. When closing its story, archive does not suit Paraíba, for it is not about history but spectacle. Silence is not right either, for Paraíba shouts in neon light. The proper directive is object focus. Paraíba's meaning is inseparable from the jewelry it adorns. Graph necklaces, Harry Winston rings, Cartier masterpieces. It is not simply a mineral, but an object of desire, the gem of the late 20th century, crafted into treasures that embody both rarity and modern luxury. And so Paraíba Tourmaline claims number 1. From chalky, overlooked tourmaline crystals to the most electric gem ever discovered, it represents the ultimate inversion of value, ugliness into radiance, obscurity into legend. Neon fire or market hype. Does Paraíba deserve to be the gem of our century? And with that question, our countdown closes. 15 stones once dismissed, broken, or ignored, reborn as million-dollar treasures. Proof that beauty does not always announce itself at first glance. Sometimes it waits in silence, in rubble, or in rust, until light, fire, or history brings it alive. From gray ores to neon fire, from broken rubble to imperial thrones. These were the stones the world once ignored, yet they became treasures worth millions. Each gem in this countdown carried the same lesson. Beauty does not always announce itself at first sight. Sometimes it hides in rust, in cracks, in shadows, waiting for those willing to look deeper. Our journey through the top 15 ugly stones that became million-dollar treasures is more than a list of curiosities. It is a reminder that value is often disguised, and what seems worthless today may shape markets, empires, or legends tomorrow. But the story of gemstones never ends here. In the episodes ahead, we will uncover stones once worshipped as spirits, gems feared as curses, and minerals so rare that nature may never create them again. If you've stayed with us until now, we invite you to share your thoughts. Which stone surprised you the most, and which do you believe still hides untold secrets? Thank you for watching Tops, the journey into the hidden kingdom of gemstones until the subsequent discovery.